3, 2, 1. Okay, I guess we're live on YouTube. Hello everyone, I am Pratyush. I am one of the panelists for this round. I don't have any preferred gender pronouns. And I welcome you all to the round one for Depths of Premier League. For this round, we have SSP Raj at chair. I will be paneling this round. The theme for round one is judiciary versus legislative, and the positions are opening government. We have Royal Challengers MVIT, Punit and Chaitanya will be doing it. On opening opposition, we have MVIT Super Giants, Samhita and Ayush. On closing government, we have MVIT Knight Riders, Dhanush and Kanishq. On closing opposition, we have MVIT Super Kings, Ayush, Kaushik and Rohan. Okay, the motion for this round reads, this House would allow democratic governments to overturn Supreme Court slash Constitutional Court's decision with a simple majority in legislation. And that being said, I would like to welcome and give the floor to SSV Bhaiya to moderate the whole of the session. SSV Bhaiya, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Thank you, Pratyush. So, hi, folks. I hope you had a good evening preparing and everything, right? So, without much ado, myself, Vishesh Viraj, I will be your chair for this preliminary round, and I don't have any specific pronouns. You can just call me by my name. Now, going to the openings of this debate, I wish you all the best to every participants and first timers and experiencements, and hope the best teammates. Right, without much ado, let me brief you with today's motion. This House would allow democratic government to overturn Supreme Court or Constitutional Court decisions with simple majority in the legislature. I hope motion is clear to everyone. And I will welcome the Prime Minister, Mr. Prime Minister. Prime Minister.
Chaitanya.
Oh, Chaitanya.
Hello, my name is Dpl Chaitanya, and I have no preferred gender.
Ayush, you are good with timer, right?
I hope I am audible.
I will give, you're perfectly audible. I will give you a tap in touch space. Sorry, for not setting the timer.
Can I start my speech?
Yeah, you can start your speech.
Yeah, I'm starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. So let me clear this first. The motion is that we support overturning the judgment of Supreme Court by legislature. So the first thing is why legislature can overturn the judgment of Supreme Court, as legislature represent the representatives who are voted representatives of the people of India. So as the constitution says, we the people of India, and it also says the voice of the people, as legislature has a primary power, and this power can be utilized in order to overturn the judgment of Supreme Court. So the second part of the motion says with a simple majority. The simple majority here means the two-third majority of the majority that should be required by the legislature in order to overturn the judgment of Supreme Court as of in any amendments of Constitution, as the Constitution of India is the supreme document here, and it governs the three pillars of democracy, which is legislature, judiciary, and executive. So in India, Supreme Court is the highest court where a person can present his case. So if the case, if he is not he didn't got justice, and if he feels that he should go again. So in case of overturning the judgment of Supreme Court, the legislature has the power. Legislature should have to overturn the judgment, as it presents the will of the people, and if it is done properly, and if legislature gets the power to overturn the judgment of Supreme Court, it would be justified, as legislature represents the will of people, and it also represents and it also upholds democracy, which is done like that. So the second thing is, what is the requirement for the what is the major requirement for the change in judgment of Supreme Court? So there are factors where the Supreme Court judgment cannot be exactly clear, or it can the victim or the person who has presented his case may not be satisfied with the judgment, or the people of India may feel that this judgment is not correct. So in that case, the legislature can overturn the judgment of Supreme Court by giving the valid reasons and the valid proof to the president of the country, as he also is the supreme head of the country according to the constitution. So in this case, the legislature must have the power to overturn the judgment of Supreme Court, as we can see in the Parliament in case of UK. The Parliament of the British Parliament is a supreme institution. So hence, the legislature should have the power to overturn the judgment of Supreme Court. The second reason why I'm saying the opposition may argue that what about the minorities? The legislature will always focus on the majority. Let me clear this first. The minority of the country also represents the legislature, as we also know that at certain point of things, the minority may oppose the judgment in certain acts, but the exact reason for the validation of the reason is that the majority or the legislature must give a valid reason to the president of the country in order to overturn the judgment of Supreme Court. And again, the thing is, the judicial independence of the country should not be compromised in overturning the uh, judgment of Supreme Court, as the legislature may act in the vacuum of judicial independence, which gives the valid reason where the legislature may empower the judiciary in this case. And also, uh, it also is very clear that the Supreme Court gives the judgment, and if the majority of the country feels that this judgment is unjust, so then the legislature must have the power in order to overturn the judgment, and we already have major two reasons that it represents the will of people, which is a very important thing in the constitution, as the constitution itself says that it is built for the people, by the people, and to the people. So it would be completely justified in order to overturn the judgment of the Supreme Court, as uh, as it would be justified, as well as it would give complete justice to the nation, where it is a democratic nation which has which would respect the will of the people rather than exact bias of the court. So in this case, uh,
Chaitanya, it's time up.
Thanks, sir.
yeah, thank you.
I thank the Prime Minister for a fine speech. Now I'd like to welcome the Leader of Opposition to start the case for opening opposition. Here. Ayush is going as Leader of Opposition.
Yes, just few seconds.
Yeah.
Fine. Panel, please note I'm ready. So I'll just give a small introduction before I start. Good evening, everyone. I hope you're having a good evening. Oh, sorry, very good evening. So my name is Ayush Rathor. I'm from second year CSA, and today I'll be starting as opening government leader of opposition. I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. First of all, let's understand how Prime Minister started his speech. He mentioned one point clearly, I heard, कि legislature upholds the democracy value. Now, panel, please understand that legislature alone does not uphold the democracy value. There are three main branches in any democratic country you pick around the globe. First one is obviously legislature, as the government said. Second one is executive, and third one is judiciary. Now, obviously, we know the roles. Legislature is for lawmaking, education is for politicians and all, government non-government oppositions, and judiciary is there to keep a check on these two. You pick any democratic government, judiciary is always there to keep a check on these two. Now I'll start by teaching, telling you the three main stakeholders that will get affected if this comes into place, and then I'll touch a little bit upon our model. Okay, now first let's understand the first stakeholder, the judiciary or the judges. Now, judicial system plays a very crucial role in these democratic governments because they are the key people here to make controversial or major decisions that will affect everyone in that country. True, we can take any recent political example. We can take the example of Ram Mandir. Sorry if I break anyone's hope. We can see judges had to be pretty confident in their decision before making the final ruling. So if this rule comes into place, judges will lose that confidence, get scared in making those type of decisions. Now, second, they will get influenced by politicians. Obviously, when politicians are allowed to overturn these decisions, politicians will woo them. They will put up threats on them. So these these judges will get influenced by these politicians by threatening and all, weakening the judiciary system. Now, second, let's come on politicians. Now, how these politicians come into play, right? So these politicians at last will obviously favor themselves, will favor their party's policies, will favor their the party's goals. I'm talking politicians as a second main stakeholder in this case. So obviously now politicians can be wooed easily for their own gains or personal gains, their own gains or political gains as well. Why? Because in many of the cases, like if we see democratic governments in developing nations, there are many politicians who are still not that educated. They have come on the basis of votes. That is true. That is allowed in democratic countries. So these people will not have that much thought process to think about these complicated cases if they want to overturn them. So they can be easily wooed by their political parties, like you have to vote for this, right? So easily overturning can get. Now, second, many a times all the political parties together have to come to a certain conclusion to pass something, right? It isn't like in a democracy, if a party wins, it has all the power, it has everything. No, opposition also plays a key role in this political process. So if this rule comes into place, the government party will be less willing to compromise on their side. Many a times government party has also should also compromise, right? But now when they have the power, they will not compromise, they will just do whatever they want. Adding the point of UK system that Prime Minister said here, since legislature has the power to overturn these decisions in UK, they continuously enter a deadlock where judiciary, House of Lords, as it is said, and House of Commons, they do not, coincide or think with each other, and there is always collision. So the process of political processes get slow. The legislature gets slowed down. This shouldn't happen in a democratic country. Third, now when people see at those politicians, right? So, and if any decision is overturned, they will think like, oh, now these politicians are not supporting us, so it will be less fruitful for them at last, talking about their personal gains. They'll get less vote next time. Third, coming to the main person, public. Now, many a times these judges have to make certain decisions related to the fundamental rights of their citizens, right? For example, we can take the case where homosexual sex was illegal in India until Navtej Singh, a person in 2018, filed a case in Supreme Court against Union of India, overturning this decision, protecting the right of privacy of the public. Now imagine if the government, tries to overturn this. Won't this be a threat to the LGBTQ or minority community, as well as the fundamental right of any person? Second, whenever we talk about judiciary, normal public talks about judiciary, we are like, we'll see you in court, we'll see you there, we'll see you there. So when the judiciary power is lost, it is controlled by legislature, by the majority of the legislature, people will start losing trust, right? Also, if any major decision is overturned, there will be riots, there will be communal violence, there will be obviously rights. Now third, coming about the model. Now government failed to tell us till now, like, till what extent are they allowing allow these decisions to get overturned, right? Or for what cases will they allow the entire case? Will they allow only few cases, or will they allow, like, whatever the system was? They didn't mention anything like that. Not talking about those models, each and every democratic country has a proper base system for those type of conflicts. Majority of the time, it's the constitution that governs the rule, that governs the laws in these cases. It has amendments, it has the power to define the area where the legislature should work, to define the area where executive should work, to define the area where judiciary should work and how it should work. And in case of conflicts, it can be resolved very easily given the present conditions and present constitutions of all the democratic countries. With this, I end my case here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leader of Opposition, for fine speech. I'd like to welcome the DPM.
Hello, am I audible? Am I
Punit,
audible?
just a minute. Yeah, just a minute, Punit. Yeah, you can continue, please.
I would like to request the edges, because I cannot know the time how much I'm speaking. When I click 6 minutes, a text on the private chat group would be very appreciated. Small
Yeah,
help from
we
your
will
side.
given it.
That can be done.
Yeah, it would be done.
Thank you so much. Uh, 1 second. I'll start my speech in 2, 3. Okay. I would like to start my speech in 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So coming to the point that the opposition asked us that what kind of what is the threshold level we are telling that the legislator can come and overturn any decisions. Any decisions can be overturned if the legislature feels that those decisions are not right for the people and for the betterment of the country. And when I come down to the point that why legislature is okay on turning down few of the decisions what Supreme Court would take, is that, see, legislators are made by leaders who are elected by the people, and they are the people who are concerned and are viable and questionable for if the country hasn't grown in a certain way, or some decisions aren't working for the betterment of the people. So there is a proper check and balance when a legislator even tries to change a decision. And when the opposition came here and spoke about, there would be more threats if legislator comes and changes the decisions, I think so that's opposite. It would be more when the legislator does not have a direct power to change any decisions, because now the legislature knows if you don't threaten the Supreme Court judges, or if you don't pay the Supreme Court judges, the decisions what they want cannot happen. So the case where threatening to Supreme Court judges is going to happen more is when Supreme Court's decisions are maximum. So yeah, that is that. But when I come down to why legislators, like leaders, are more are more viable to changing decisions for prone for people pro, is because, again, they form the government, and when they form the government, they want to come back to power again, and they will not come back to power if they are not making laws which is pro to the people or pro to the country for growth. Till that time, if they make decisions, obviously they will lose their votes, and next time a different party is going to come into power, a different set of leaders are coming into power. And thirdly, the opposition came and spoke about how the leaders are illiterate. That's the whole point, right? Now that we know that legislator can change some of the decisions, we as citizens know that our vote should go to people who are smart enough to make decisions. This should have been the case from starting, which is sadly not happening in our country right now. But this is a thing which should change. Nevertheless, like like if Supreme Court makes decision, or if legislator can change decision of Supreme Court, we should always look at leaders who you, or like who we think are the ones who have that capacity to understand stuff. Here the opposition came and told that leaders do not have capacity to understand stuff. I'm pretty sure, if even if the leaders are illiterate, to run a country with such a big population, such a big economy, and from a state where we were when independence happened, it requires a little more knowledge than what we have currently. And that is, I'll be very honest that yeah, there are illiterate, but I really think that you require a lot of knowledge to run a country, even to a place which as India has come right now. And opposition, I think so, here is failing to understand that we are not telling that legislature itself will make all the decisions, right? Supreme Courts will make the decisions. Supreme Court or every like stages of court will make the decisions. There would be only few decisions. I'll take POI later. There would be only few decisions which the legislature is going to change. Like if the legislature feels that these decisions, again, I'm repeating this point. If the legislature if the legislature feels that these topics, like the decision what they have told is not pro for the people, and then they came and even my PM came here and spoke about that when we mean the majority of legislature, that is how democracy's majority of legislatures works, that is 2/3 majority. If 2/3 majority of legislator agrees, only then will the decision be overturned, right? And this model is pretty similar to the model of how US law works. So how in US is that you have a jury, so you have to, there is the judge does not tell a decision directly, the jury makes the decision. So that way, which has a higher weightage, they come. It is in the similar way. And I want to again put on the point that they came here about LGBTQ happened, and the legislative people wouldn't have made that happen. I would like to tell that LGBTQ communities case went on for a very long period of time, and even Supreme Court regulated that yes, we do recognize them as, you know, a proper sex, and marriage is allowed and all that, when proper, like there was a proper shift in like not riots I would say, but there was like a large group of people who were there on the road protesting, telling the government, like telling the Supreme Court that these are rights, we are people, and this is our life. And that even a legislative leader can see, right? Legislative leaders are not so dumb that they would see that such a big mass of people are up for it. And now the Supreme Court came here and told that like gay marriages is legal, and legislator will come here and uphold it. Then they will lose all the youth voters, they will use all the LGBTQ plus community voters, and all the voters who think that change is necessity for the development of people, right? So and the other part I would like to tell is that there is high chances that the Supreme Court's leader can be biased in his opinion, and there is no other court above the Supreme Court where you can go and check if the Supreme Court has given a decision which is not fair enough. So what we are doing here is legislature is just one more check and balance on the Supreme Court's decision, on if they have taken a decision which is again not good for the people. So courts are still independent. Courts can take their decisions how they want to give. Courts will have their power and everything. It's just that few decisions which is not good for the country, which is not good for the people's growth, and not good for the country's economy, are going to be changed for the legislative. Okay, so the POI, bro, the whole point is this. The whole point is this, that the leaders are meant to help people grow, right? If they do not do work and if they do not see the country to grow, obviously the people are not going to work. So end of the day, whatever decision the leaders are going to take, it is going to be pro people. And what do we want as a government? We want as a government for decisions to be pro people, pro country, so that the country grows. And as soon as there are decisions, if the legislator takes decisions which are not pro people and not pro country, they will lose that election. So they will have that in their mind, that these decisions cannot be done. With that, I would like to end my case.
Uh, Thank you, Punit, for government. I'm sorry. You have DLO, right? I'd like to call upon the DLO to present the case from the opposition.
Am I audible and visible? Uh, Myself, Samhita. I am DLO for the debate today. No preferred gender pronouns, and I'll start my speech in three, two, and one. Panel, I want you to understand that OG is saying that they will be giving a minute power to judiciary will be independent, but legislature will be giving its decision or such cases. Most of the cases, as they said. So what I want to say is that when the uh, judges will be given the legislature legislature people will be given the power over the judiciary, saying that they can uh, overturn the decision given by judiciary or something like that. Judges will be usually a bit in the what you say, a pressure that the decision which they give might be overturned easily, and they will come under influence of the ruling party or the opposition party, irrespective of cases. And as it was said by DPM, that today's scenario, we can't say that most of them are literate, but they know what is good for people. But we have to see the current scenario, what is happening. Like presently there are only like, not only I'm saying, like most of them are illiterate, and you want two-third of the like you will be taking two-third majority from legislature, and those two-third also will be either taking decision on either based on their party gain or their individual gain. So mostly it will be like how, like it will be mostly they'll be gaining the suppressing the judges or just for there. And we can go with the cases which has happened in like present scenario governments, where legislature have tried to hide some scenarios. Like Maharashtrian police have hidden some situations going on, and they wanted to hide the actual scenario from public. But when the judiciary takes its own decision, it will be clear cut and it will give out the actual essence what's happening. And at the same time, we can even say that judiciary is a set of people who are completely literate and are what you say, thought to tackle the situation in every way possible. Like they are taught how to handle every situation, and they are trained for it. So they will know how to take decisions. Sometimes we can't say that every time what people ask for is a right decision. For present they might think it is a right one, but in future it might for a long term that decision might be harmful for government or any other thing. So judiciary should have its stand, like if it is for people, or like sometimes it will be for the betterment of people, but the for current scenario it might look against. But if legislature get involved and says judiciary to change its decision, then in long run that might harm the government itself. And at the same time, we all know that our constitution, or the democratic country constitution, mainly mainly runs on balancing of the powers. If one of the house gets more power, then why, how can it be called as democracy or something? So we have to take care that equally everything is balanced, and there should be intervention in such a way that it does not overturn the other house. So here, judiciary takes its decision as it's independent, because its duty is to protect the law. So it will go according to what it's needed. Like the one who is taking decision, it's like he knows what is pros and cons, and he'll take based on that. If legislature involves, like for example, if there are cases like state versus cases, where state versus a case, some that kind of cases, usually political parties will get involvements. They'll usually go, like if for example the case is against something which goes against the ruling party, then obviously the members of opposition party will give the what you say majority in other way, and that might actually create a chaos, and decision might be impaired. And the end of the day, the one who will suffer will be obviously the general government, and they'll be the one who will suffer at the end of the day, and they'll suffer completely. And we should take care of the people here. So, and democratic politicians also, as they are saying majority 2/3, to come to that majority also it takes time. We should take care that some cases needs a fast track, and usually the fast track cases will be those where majority of stakeholders involved, like people, government and all. So in that cases, if you wait for 2/3 of the majority, again it will be a time waste. When a judiciary, a jury, a person sitting as a jury panel has the ability to take a good decision for a country and betterment of a country, why should we wait for another majority 2/3 and waste the time factor also is important. And as DPM said about the jury set by UK government and all, usually jury is set for criminal cases, and involvement of legislature is huge, as they have said in the like the cases where it's not a crime, proper criminal cases and all, there will be involvement of legislature. So if they want to keep a jury type of system in the government, they can bring a committee or something which has all the three bodies involved, like members of all the three bodies. Why only a legislature will be given more power over the other two, or over the judiciary? So end of the day, it's government is like a sorry, our constitution is divided into three, and all the three should balance the equal power. There is something called as a sharing of power, and sharing of power, as they said, we shouldn't overburden or burden the judiciary in such cases. It is divided for a reason, because it shouldn't be burdened. There is something called as making law, executing law and protecting law. So let each house do their own work, right? Like let legislature create a law and take care of it. Let judiciary protect the law, and let they amend whatever is needed, and let they take care of whatever is needed. And 2/3 of majority, as I said, it's not always same. And then judges, politician influence and all will be again a whole corruption cases, and a lot of other issues might recreate. End of the people, the sufferers will be end of the day, sufferers will be people, like common people. The one who went to take justice will never get the justice they wanted, like because of the intervention of all other like bodies, which was not at all required. If there is intervention of legislature, is just waste of time, just intervention of people, and intervention of time, and like it is just waste of time. That's what I would like to say. With this, I'd like to conclude my case.
Thank you, Samhita. Thank you, DLO. And now moving on to closing half of the debating room, I would like to call upon the government member of parliament on the Gulf side. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Can I know your name?
Am I audible? Dhanush, sir.
Oh, hi there. Just wave your hand or whenever you are ready.
Yeah. Shall I start? Am I audible?
You're audible.
Okay, cool. I'll start in 3, 2, 1, go. Running a nation is just like running a boat on water. Both legislative and judiciary is much required, like based on your right wing and left wing. So you can't just overpower your right side or left side, because you always go back to the position you are. Both has to have equal power, and both has to have equal what we say, equal thing to do. And nowadays you can see when legislature makes any law, judiciary overchecks the thing, and that's very, I mean, I think it's a very fair thing to do. At the same time, when judiciary makes any call, it's fair that legislature overchecks the and we say we overturn the condition only when we get simple majority. And I like to say simple majority stands more than 50% of the entire voting, and both the openings are said two-third of the thing. I don't know where which to hold up now. It's like simple majority of 50% or two-third majority. And when briefing down the cases, there are many cases in the Indian nations. It can be a national based case, it can be a financial based case, it can be an individual based case. So the stakeholders of each output is differs, but the ultimate agenda is to give a proper and a basic solution for the nation. Imagine when Supreme Court put up the law of saying that national anthem should be played in every cinema movie at beginning. I'm not a huge fan of that everything, and also it's not fair that we can sing national anthem at the places where we go for enjoyment, and also it's not the right place to do. And such cases can be overturned with the support of the legislative overcoming things. And also recently there was a law made from the court saying that we can't feed birds in our residence just because it disturbs the other residents in the following. I mean, there are various cases which Supreme Courts bring for the betterment of the nation, but not necessarily that they are good or they are perfect. So I would like to say that from the closing government, that if if we could put up this case in a legislative perspective, it becomes more great, because when 200 people makes a decision, it's very differs from the five people making decision. I know the five people who makes the decision from the court are very accurate, but also same time we have 200 people's 200 different opinions which makes them happen. And also there is something called legislative meetings don't happen regularly, they happen every 6 months. I don't know, our opening government didn't mention that how will this process go on, and also how can we trust the people. Basically the process is just like electing our president. How is our president elected? Each PM or each prime minister is a representative of that particular population, and he comes and votes for the president. Similarly, these particular cases, when it comes to a national wide cases, president, sorry, PM will be, sorry, MP will be representing that particular people or that particular people constituency. And at the same time, we will build a structure in that MP will have a session with the wise people of that particular constitution, where the wise people of that particular constitution can put up their inputs for the particular cases, and they come up with the legislative meetings and they can put up their cases. And also let's understand, legislative is not just member of parliament, there's also people called Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha is considered it's a civilized people's group, and also we'll have different people from different segment who are expertised in different things. So taking their views in this particular sessions will be really helpful. And that is what we always believe, that more people putting up their ideas. And also it's, and also they just mentioned it's an voting process, and we are never saying it's just a voting process, it's a discussion pattern. We will build up such way that each interval there will be a regular discussion, and also there will be a overturning of these particular decisions made from the judiciary. And not necessary that every time we turn this up. I mean, there are some special cases which nation likes it and we just leave it. Not every day and not every time we're just opposing it. We are trying to bring a check and balance condition in in our nation, where no stakeholders is getting affected from this. And also our opposition said it's a waste of time. I mean, I always believe as an engineer, the accuracy is based on the large number of data I collect. This happens the same way with, I'm not just saying that it's only legislative based outcome. It's both judiciary and legislative collectively making a decision, where legislative is getting an opportunity to put his vote and helping the judiciary turn up the cases. So more the number of people, more number of viewpoint we are getting towards the solution, it helps. So this particular gives a chance that I, as an individual, can approach my MP saying that this is the point that you could rise up there. I mean, if it possible, and if we take it as a long-term plan, we can plan it such a way that each decisions made in these cases can be each individual based opinions at the same time too. So we always believe that
Dhanush? She is not audible to me or for everyone?
Not to me also.
Fine. So let's give him just 10 to 15 seconds so that he can reconnect. And I think Pratish, you can just stop the timer so that we can get 15 more seconds if he joins.
Hello, am I audible? And is there anything problem? I couldn't.
Yes, Dhanush. You are
Was there
back.
any glitches?
So there were some glitches. You said individual cases, you could raise each per person from that constituency can come and with meet an MP and raise
Yeah,
individual
yeah,
cases talk with you.
yeah.
That was the last thing
So
I heard.
MP
So you
comes
can
from each
continue from.
individual basis. Yeah, MP comes from each individual basis. So I mean, if we can put up a proper setup, an MP could have a proper meeting at its at its constituency, and then come to the parliament and put his opinions. And also Rajya Sabha also has such wise people in and around them. So taking up great people's opinion in making such decisions, which drastically gonna put influence on the people and the world. So we should, I mean, as India are changing towards, we require this particular change in our judiciary process so that we can minimize the errors that could be done. I don't say that judiciary is always wrong. I mean, judiciary is a proper basis which always gives us correct decisions. But there are some special cases where we require our our support. I mean, a different way of looking things, and that is where this particular motions idea comes in there. So we say that this is very much influential, and also I mean they also mentioned about the clarity and education of the legislative people. I mean, when a people can make a law for the nation, I definitely feel they can also understand what laws goes into the process. We all are voting the people just believing that they'll run the nation, and we all know that they are running the nations. We can't just blindly say they are illiterate, they don't know education, or they can't give me an output. If that is the case, we can't trust them to run a nation. It's not just one person electing the. I know the political way of seeing it is very different, but when you want to see it as a nation, we have to I mean, they are in the position which they deserve some rights. I mean, giving this particular thing can be helping us to make things better. I mean, this is what I would like to say. I don't know what is the time count because I missed out. I mean, yeah, I'll answer your POA. How did you like ask the MP is directly accessible to the people today? I mean, not every MP has that. I said we'll bring up a setup. If this does happen, we will try to build up an platform where people can put up their opinion and which could directly reach to MP. I'm not saying that MP could be reached from each and every person, but MP could reach the reasonable or the wise people that he knows to make his points towards the nation. And also, many cases are not just based on national issues; they're also based on the community issues. In that particular positions, MP can put up his case or his own way of seeing the things. The South Indian case, I mean, imagine it's a case from Karnataka. Our MP will have a chance to put up the case in the Supreme Court's decision, saying that this is what we feel from the grassroots level. And by concluding, say that we always believe that when we have a different people's opinion, I mean the large people's opinion, we can make accurate results in the planet. Thank you.
I thank member of government for fine speech. I would like to call upon the member of opposition. Member of opposition,
Am I audible?
you are audible.
Just a second.
When you are ready, just mention your name
Okay.
so that I can write it down.
My name is Rohan Singh. My
Rohan.
preferred general pronouns are he or him.
You can continue.
Okay, I'll start my speech in 3, 2, and 1. So the topic that we have, the motion that we have been given is that we will allow the democratic government to overturn the Supreme Court decision. Well, this motion sounds to me like that they're giving a concentration of power to a set of people who can do whatever they want. See, people, see, panel, we don't have a law system which is as rigid as USA or as flexible as UK. We have very proper synthesis made for Indian scenarios and Indian people. The government side keep telling us that it is the government is by the people for the people, and they should choose the people, and they should have the right to do what's select what's right and wrong. And well, government already has the right to make the laws, and I don't see what's the problem with judicial system choosing what's right and wrong, which has been running from years and all. Whenever a normal person has some issues with the government or with the laws or system, he has already always reached to our judicial system for the right. The judges and the lawyers have been taught what's right and wrong for the 4 to 5 years of their learning process. The government hasn't been taught. The politicians haven't taught what right and wrong is, and what's the right and wrong as per the law of India should be. They give by the people for the people. Well, the government is chosen by the majority of people in India. Well, let's suppose let's take an imaginary scenario where when the majority of India, well, let's suppose 90% of people in India want a country with a Hindu Rashtra. Let's take an example. I don't want to offend anybody else, and the 10% doesn't want it. That doesn't mean that we will make a Hindu Rashtra, because India is a democratic country and is a very secular country, and that's what judicial system is for. It's not where the majority lies is the right and wrong lies. We need to listen to that 10% also, that what they are telling and what are the points they are giving to us. Well, let's suppose, well, this has been very clear, and according to, well, as I remember, in the Keshakan and the case, it has been clearly defined that government has rights to amend few of the laws and in the constitution, but not all. The fundamental rights couldn't be changed, and few other constitutional aspects cannot be changed. I don't see a problem. I don't see a problem that we need to change the system to give government full rights and a whole power to make a system that where government is choosing everything, and they're making the changes as per them. This can lead to catastrophe and the destruction of democracy. We are here to protect democracy, people. The constitution have been made, and few of the fundamental rights cannot be changed just to protect the sovereignty of our country. If we see the Bilkis Bano case, the government released the convicts from the jail, and then people reached out to the court, the Supreme Court, and then the whole procedure is taken care by the court. That's why we need a judicial system separate from the government. And let's take the example of election commission also. Election commissioner earlier was chosen by the ruling party of the state. Well, now the Supreme Court has been told that we need to make a form a proper system where the opposition leader, the PM, and the CJI also should be present to choose the lead election commissioner. It says that we are stating that the fundamental rights and others cannot be changed. Government having all the power they have the power to change law. They have the power to make law. All the judicial system has is to protect them with all the power and all the knowledge that judges have been taught. They were talking about LGBTQ, that it has been running since, I guess it was in 2012 that it has been running, and by the parliament and all. Well, it was taken care by the Supreme Court in 2017 and 18, not by the parliament. It was the people who reached out to the Supreme Court for the help. If it would have been taken care by the government, the people wouldn't have to reach out to the Supreme Court. Let's suppose we bring this change and government has this power. Tomorrow, no one can reach the Supreme Court or rely on somebody to protect them from the government if in case the government changes our side. The basic construction and of the constitution tells us to protect the fundamental rights in the panel. We need the basic structure. It needs to be protected. POI, what will you propose to do when a Supreme Court judgment causes communal violence and mass killing, which disturbs the peace of the nation? Well, I would ask, what if the same thing happens due to the government? What the government takes this? You are talking about that unnecessary conviction in which this can happen with the same process. If you are telling this, if the government overrules the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court has the panel of 5 to 6 judges, 13 to 13 judges. Let's suppose in the Kishkananda case, it was 13 judges panel. That's how we tackle this. We take the majority. One judge cannot have this, cannot process this problem. Well, they were talking about Rajya Sabha people so illiterate and having wise people, and about how well read they are. And my problem with it is that let's say take Javed Akhtar, however well read he is in literature and all the stuff, it's not necessary that he has the perfect perfect idea of what's right and wrong according to the law. Please note that point, according to the law, panel, that because we are protecting the constitution over here. But the judicial independence assures, in particular, that the judges are free to conclude that action taken or the decision made by the government does not breach the law. I'm repeating this point again and again because the government has all the power they need, and I'm not able to find where the problem lies in the current system and all. Let's take the example. Let's take. I'm really sorry. Just a second. Yep. Let's see if they take a scenario that if the government takes over the decisions over the Supreme Court and others. Well, obviously the decisions would be ruled over a majority by the majority of the people, where they will have the right and wrong will be decided by the majority, and the right and wrong will be done according to them. I'll rest my case. No.
I thank member of opposition for fine speech. I'd like to call upon government whip to sum up the case from the government.
Can we? I have 30 seconds.
Just a minute.
Ready? Starting in 3, 2, 1. So hello everyone. My name is Kanishq, and so everyone came and got their points. And what I have got the best case from the opposition is that courts decides something on behalf of the people, and then it's just over. You cannot. It's just the end of petition. You cannot put fingers on that. So I think it's firstly, my member already said that they are only some group of people, 5 to maximum 10 of group of people, they are deciding something. Okay, they are deciding something. They have all the knowledge to decide things. But will it just justifies that decision? If majority of the people don't like it, what about that? Can they have majority of people don't like that thing? So what is the problem bring or giving the legislature that power to make that laws or change that law or make decisions on behalf of the people? At the end of the day, they are chosen by the people. People believed in them, so they choose them. So if they make decisions on behalf of the people, it will only benefit them and benefit the government also to get re-elected next time. So it's a win-win situation for both the government and the citizen, because government will not take any such decision that will harm the people or they harm their own image. So this is a thing we have to note. And one of the things that my colleague also mentioned, that who are checking on the code, have there any eyes on the code, and what can we do about the judicial overreach? If they come out of the region and interfere in the government decisions, we cannot do. Who will regulate that? So this is the thing I want to say. And so some of the examples my member mentioned, the example national anthem. Uh, if majority of people don't like, it's a fundamental thing. So court can not decide for everyone. So if the legislature can take decisions, they can express the views of the people, or take their views in take their views in their strides also. So, and one of the things that our uh, opposition members opposition members said that there will be biasness in the decisions if the legislators take those decisions. But I don't get that point, how there will be biasness if they are taking decisions on behalf of the people, what people want. Then even if there is biasness, then what is the problem? End of the day, people are happy. If some court decision is harming the major rights of the people, some their sentiments or something, if government come and get out of their out of their regulation to change that decision, what is the problem in that? At the end of the day, it's all about the citizens of the people. We are taking decisions on for them. So if something is good for them, we can do that. And one of the main things I want to clarify, that we are not talking about the absolute power for someone. We are talking about a diversing of power. We are not saying that we are not saying that you just give all the power to legislature. There is judiciary that time also. If legislature do something wrong, people can again go to court, or they can not re-elect the government. So it's not like the legislature is a like a like, like a monarch, or some just like a monarch or someone who is just taking the decision and imposing on everyone. It's not like that. So both judiciary and legislature are required equally, and we have to strike the right balance between them. It's just like that. So yeah, just want to summarize all the things. So government overturns any decision only if it's in the favor of people. Otherwise, government do not take every case government will take in parliament or assembly to discuss upon. It's just if case is too critical or too important to discuss on, then they only take that. And one of the members mentioned about the capacity of the leaders. The leader, I think political game is a little bit different field, or different field, if we compare it with the other fields. So they are the ones who have been there. They know the people mindsets. They know the background. So, and I think they are capable enough to take those decisions. So yeah, thank you. How much time we got left actually? Hello. Hello. Okay. So I summarize. And some of the opposition members said that this will be a waste of time. Judiciary has a lot of pending cases. There are thousands of pending cases in India. If judiciary take it one by one, it will not be over in 100 years of time also. So that is the waste of time if every small decision has to be taken by judiciary. So the legislatures can take those decisions, or in the taste those. And what are the yeah, this justice will not. It's all about what and today I have to say only that we are not talking about the absolute power. In the one hand, we are talking about diversity of powers. Everyone should contribute, and at the end of the day, it's all about the citizens. We take decisions for the citizens, and not for our sake. So yeah, thank you. That's all I have.
I thank government whip for fine speech. I'd like to call upon the opposition whip to end this debate. Now, op whip, just a minute.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, fine. So when should I start?
Just
Okay.
wave your hand when you are ready, or just tell
Okay.
Pratyush.
Okay. My speech start in 3, 2, 1. So, good evening to all the jury members, moderators, and congratulations to all the participating members, other than the closing opposition, of course, for the bunch of loose talks they have talked. Well, the topic of tussle between the judiciary and legislative has been a constant motion of debate since the independence of our country. And that is where the concept of separation of power, or let me be more correct, the division of power between all the three organs of democracy plays an distinguished role. I deliberately focused on division of power because the separation of power and division of power are separate things to talk. Um, like because the separation of power is a system where all the three organs are different entities like USA. But here in India, we follow a system where both the legislatures and executive are overlapped, and judiciary is a completely different entity, which result in two separate pillars, one that is elected one and the other one that is non-political. What does the common sense say? Because it's two versus one, the side which is one should be given a privileged supremacy. Isn't it so? Okay, now let us understand how the legislative of this country is formed, because that is very crucial point to understand. It is formed by the will of the majority. Yes, democracy is the rule of the majority. Suppose example, let be a country where eating what you want is the fundamental right, and there are two groups, one who can only eat rotis and other one that can only eat rice. Now during the process of election, the per se rice party wins and comes to power, and it declares that that from now there will only be rice that will made in the country. The roti party, which can only digest rotis, has fallen in minority. Now what do you think they will go now? Where do you think they will go for the protection of the fundamental rights of eating? Parliament? No, they are the only one who made the laws. Yes, the judiciary. So now we understand why is judiciary so important, because the country not only belongs to majority but also the one who are not in majority, right? uh, POI, I will take you afterwards. Number 3, I want to mention that the constitution of our country, that is India, not only guarantees the judiciary to make a judicial review, but also to make judicial overreach and judicial activism, that I will explain in my further rebuttals. Now this is what my position says, and now I am coming to my rebuttals. the opening government the opening government has very fundamental flaw in their speech. Both of the arguments are based on the assumption that simple majority is two-third of the majority, and because it is two-third of the majority, it is all right, because it will be a tough task for the parliament to pass. I don't know from where does they got this definition of simple majority. As far as I know, the simple majority is 51% of the available members to the parliament during the time of vote. The next thing that opening government said is only legislature represent the voice of India. I mean, are you serious? From where? What is the source of your knowledge? From where do you draw such conclusion? From the constitution? No, the constitution never says that the legislature only power of the are only voice of the country. As I explained, there are two pillars of the democracy. One is the elected one, and other is the non-elected or non-political one, which keeps a checks and balance. They both keeps and checks and balance on each other. The other case he said was the comparison with the United Kingdom. The simple answer to that is the India is a unique democracy. Any such comparison like USA or UK is not eligible in the case of India. Okay. Now the Deputy Prime Minister Punit Bhaiya, he said that only legislatures have accountability. Sir, how can you say that? Are you aware of the case of Singh case? During the case of Singh case, that in UP Legislative Assembly, the two judges who declared the verdict were called upon by the Legislative Assembly for their trials. This makes your point null and void that only legislative has accountability. The judiciary have accountability as much as the legislative has. He also said that that the government will do good works because they want to come in power again. This point is self-sufficient to explain the majority rule. The point he said is self-sufficient to say that the government works only under the majority, and it do not care about the minorities, right? Also, the speech of Punit Bhaiya was quite making a balance that we are not saying this and that. We want to make it kind of a balanced trick, right? I think the preposition has no form to say that. The preposition cannot say that we are only we are going to follow such and such things only when it is moderate and done in everyone's goodness. I think the preposition has to take everything that comes in the way of forming a law. Okay. Now, the other point that was made was Supreme Court can be biased. He said the Supreme Court can be biased. Well, the Parliament is biased by its definition as the Supreme Court can be biased, but the Parliament is biased. It is formed on the motion of majority, isn't it so? Also, the closing government's abilities of the legislative to make laws. It is the ability of the legislative to make laws. Then why didn't they make laws on Article 377 or the election of chief election commissioner chief election commissioner? It was the judiciary that took up the case, formed the law, and directed to the legislative that this is how the law should be made. The legislative had no clue about making the laws on such things. Also, the opening opposition has talked about the judicial independence. They have considered opposition. They have considered the judicial independence as the basic structure of the constitution. Sir, the parliamentary sovereignty is also basic structure of the constitution. The prime minister's office is also basic structure of the constitution. The council of ministers is also basic structure of the constitution. And he said that if the decisions a minute please, the opening opposition said that if the decisions are overturned, there will be riots in the country. Are you aware of the Shahbano case? Are you aware about the Golaknath case? Are you aware of the Cooper case? Are you aware of all the cases that was made? It was made by overturning the decisions. There were any rights. Instead, there were new definitions of the interpretation of constitution. Thank you. I'm done.
Speech?
I'm done.
Well, folks, thank you, folks, for all of your participation. Just give us some time. We'll discuss with panel and we'll arrive with the proper verdict. Pratish, can we just leave this room and we can? Yeah. Well, all speeches were good. Folks, we'll meet you soon. For OA, you have to mark the respective judges, and vice versa. It happens, everyone marks it. And as per the so-called rule, we allow the panel to go first, then last the chair. So we have on panel we have Pratyush. So he will go first and he will deliver his word. Then I will deliver my word. Then you can, based on our word, you can just mark us for further progress of the rounds. Pratyush? Okay, till Pratyush arrives, so everyone is here present, and from the OG, at least one participant from OG or OG. OG is here. Can I know OO? OO is here. Just type OO if you are here. OG is here. I can see Vitala. Yeah. Hi, Pratyush. Pratyush is back. And from OO, right? Opening off. Opening off. Closing up. Just type in private chat or CG or something. And closing CG is here. Kanishq is here. CO is also here. Closing off is also here. So each member from team is available, so that still we can just let the judges they can mark easily, as all of them are present. Even one person is representing their team, it's also fine. So Pratyush, you can go ahead with your OA, then I will deliver with my OA, then they can mark.
Yeah, Bhaiya, sure. Just confirming, am I audible perfectly?
Yes, Pratyush, you are audible loud and clear.
Perfect. Yeah, like before going on, like just going and doing a quick roll call. Opening government, are you here? I see them in the chat. Opening opposition, are you here? Opening opposition.
Yes, we are here.
Perfect. It's closing government here. CG, are you here?
Yeah.
Okay, I see
Yeah.
them in the chat. Perfect. Is CEO here? Super Kings. Yep. I can see Ayush. Perfect then. Yeah. I'm going to start my OA in 3, 2. Let me set up my timer. Yeah. I'm going to start my OA in 3, 2, and 1. Okay, hello everyone. I'm Pratyush. I was a panel judge for this round. This is how I'm going to structure my oral adjudication. First, some general comments. 2, the call. 3, a brief explanation for the call. 4th, questions. If you have any, feel free to ask me right now or any of the chair judges. Okay, so let's go with some general comments about the debate. I think first of all, when you see this debate as a THBT motion, I think at some or the other point of time, the whole debate become something based upon principle versus principle. So I think for the government sides or both OG and CG, they relied and talked about why the principal justification for having legislation into power directly linked to in some other point of time that see you have the power in your own hand, right? You are the one who are elected by the common people. You are one who are having more accountability at the end of the day. You are someone who give the power, and you are someone who are to come into power next term also. It's more likely that you are the one who are the more soul flag bearer of democracy. And this was something that I got from both OG and CG in general, not a comparative. If I go on the opposition bench, what I got in much greater sense of opportunity was that opposition bench in current time was able to prove to me from their examples, from their substitution, that why on their side of the house the concentration of power to certain legislative people are something that's not viable in the current scenario. Secondly, the idea of accountability that government benches talk about, they directly counter it by two central narratives. One, that how these certain people are the one who are not educated or literate enough to understand the certain policies of the judiciary system. Secondly, on certain examples that how these all fundamental rights are something that can be clearly washed out. I saw one simple basic class throughout the debate in first place, and that basic simple class was totally based upon the idea and accountability that if certain directives or if certain things are there, are you going to trust these people? And the idea of something more linked to majority versus minority debate in first place. Okay, so let's go on to the verdict. What are the rankings in first place? For me, I gave the first to opening opposition, second to closing opposition, third to closing government, fourth to opening government. I will repeat it once again. First to opening opposition, second to closing opposition, third to like closing government, fourth to opening government in first place. Let's go on to talk then why the whole rankings were such and why we believe it was in first place. Let's go and debug why opening government took a fall in today's debate. One, on idea of justifications, how they are going to do it. I get in Vithal's speech that when he talks about that three-third of majority in first place should be required for this kind of legislations, and then he goes on to talk in first place that why the idea of requirement in current status. So one, he talks about the Supreme Court judges, that how their judgments are something that times are not clear. Two, in terms that how people of India are something that are not happy with the judgments in first place and all those things. In clearly, when you take BPM speech, especially in Punit speech, I get the idea of clarity where like OG case is going in first place. What I get from OG in PM, like DPM's speech. In DPM's speech, I get the idea that they're ready to buy the hard bullet and they're ready to take all the decisions that can be overturned, not just some specific case diaspora of like cherry picking of these religions in first place. But understand here where the main case lies upon. No, here the whole idea that understand that no one is above Supreme Court or no one that how people should go vote to these educated people. The counter narrative that opposition talks about is something which is countered by Punit case in first place. How it's countered? They talk about that even though if you go require educated people, it's now you who are going to vote for these educated people in next upcoming election. At the end of the day, adding some more extent to OG case. But what I felt was missing from OG case permanently was the lack of model that how they're going to do it. I think especially CO directly takes down OG case in terms when talking about simple majority by 51% versus two-thirds of majority, and then taking the debate that I already talked about majority versus minority, that how we are going to tackle about the minority. Note that in Vithal's speech, there was thought that how we are going to talk about minority, but it has never been explained properly by the PM or DPM in general that how we are going to do certain things. Now let's quickly go to CG. Why do you think CG win over OG and like but didn't able to win over the other two benches of opposition? One simple reason: CG gave me a model how they are going to do it and what's the necessity of these things in first place. Especially in Dhanush's case, so clear that how and what are the requirements that and what are the cases that you are going to do this on a longer period of time. In CG, especially, you see the idea that how there have been distinction between certain of the remarks by Supreme Court and the legislating people. Clearly, the idea that how if in some cinema halls, like you see the idea of playing of national anthem and how more people are not simultaneously affected by it. I get no response from OG in terms of how and to what level you are going to do these certain things. But in the whip speech, you get the clear idea of differentiation from OG in itself. What was the differentiation? One, that how this process is more likely of electing president. Dhanush gave a clear example, explained me that how they are going to do all these fundamental things. But even though in the best case scenario, CG were able to prove down the loopholes that were present in OG case. Loopholes in the sense that how we are going to deal with minority or how in the best case scenario you are going to check on court systems. Like you're going to seek an accountability for the court system, that all your decisions can be overturned by these common people who are like working in parliament and all those things. But even in the best case scenario, the diversification of power that Kanishq talks about at the end of his speech, that understand that why this diversification is something that's bad for the democracy. It's something that I get a better sense from CG that gives them an upper hand from the OG. Now let's quickly go and bring CO into the debate and why we think CO was something that were able to take CG in first place. I think the case was clear from CO what they wanted in first place. One, especially from the Rohan speech, when Rohan goes and talks about case one and Bharti case, which was a major pillar, and this was something I expected from the teams to come and talk about in general. And understand that how it's something more power. Why? Because he starts his case by simply assuming and simply explaining to me that why this concentration of power to certain people is something that's very bad for the democracy, and directly counters and links it with democracy, that how democratic powers and how democratic systems are something that are more likely to happen to these grounds in first place. But even if you counter narrative that what CO presents to me, in first place in itself, cases when they go and talk about cases like case one and Bharti case or cases like Bilkis Banu case, you get a different idea of narrative that what happens when you give power to legislative, especially when you see Bilkis Banu case, where the rape convicts were literally like executed by the Supreme Court in first place. And this is where the problem comes in for the opposition times. Why? Because it's clearly violating the basic fundamental principles of democracy in first place. And this is where the main distinctions comes, right? We're talking about democratic countries, and in big scenario of house, this clash between majority and minority standard, and second on clash of democratic values. Which side is better holding these democratic values? You see it from the CEO clearly coming up and giving you numerous examples, spelling in the case, and how this like division of powers is something that can be much more likely to hold. But second, and this is where the most important part of debates coming from CO case, that the need of urgency, and understand why it's more important to weigh upon. That in the current status quo, you don't see any need of this power to be diluted from Supreme Court to these legislative. Why? Because you see the idea of that how rights can happen on both sides of the house. It's symmetrical enough. And the idea of urgency that Rohan talks about gives them a way upper hand than both of the benches from the government side. Idea of urgency needed to be explained in both government benches at some other point of time. That was never been present and never been explained by both sides in first place. Now let's quickly go and talk and bring open opposition in the debate and understand why open opposition is the one who has winning this debate by a clear good margin, but by all of the houses in first place. Let's just start and debunk by like Ayush Rathore case in first place. One, when Ayush clearly goes and talk about the distinction of power, and then he goes upon to talk about the main stakeholders. This is where he takes down the debate. He breaks down each and every fundamental points in all equal narratives, starting from judiciary and judges to like influential politicians to the opposition who are into power, third the people and the politician, fifth the most important the general public. In all the aspect of clear differentiation, I get a weak and clear comparative from all these kinds of house. Understand what you go and see from a politician. You see these politicians, they make controversial judgments like Ram Janmabhoomi case or how they fear their party goes in first place. Understand how it's going to be. It's now the debate between literal section of judges versus illiterate section of politicians. And this is where the main distinction come from Rathore's speech. That in first place, these illiterate sections of politicians are going to vote for the something that's going to benefit the party system. This is directly counters with Punit's argument, where Punit talks about that if you are going to vote for an educated politician, it's going to help your nation at the end of the day. Rathore clearly talks about that even though this politician is literate or illiterate, it's going to affect the, or it's going to like these politicians are going to vote what their party wants them to vote in parliament. If certain ideologies are going to benefit this particular party, they're going to definitely vote for those parties in first place. And this is where the main distinction everything comes from, right? And this is where the main comparative and main structure comes from the whole of LO speech. They talk about all these educated morons. They talk about how people see politicians, the opposition, and all those things. And this is where Samhita comes and clears out the debate for open opposition. Samhita talks about two simple things in the debate. One, whose duty is to protect the law, Either it's politicians or either it's the Supreme Court judges. Who do you sit and go to Supreme Court judges in first place? Like all those accountability, if your laws or fundamental laws are violated, you see Supreme Court judges, right? That these are the ones who are going to protect you at some other point of time. And this is where you see the politicians coming up and whose duty is to protect the situation. And second, and the most important thing, that how general government is going to suffer at some other point of time. The long term versus short term comparative that came from Samhita's speech. That in short term, it may be something that hurt common people, not suit their agendas. But in the long term, it's something that's going to be benefit for the country at some other point of time. And this is where the main clear comparative differs opening opposition from the debate, and they are the one who are going to win it clearly with all the other comparative that I've already explained. I think that was all. I have taken a good amount of time, so I'm not going to take any questions right now. But if there are any questions, feel free to message me or call me anytime after Justice Sivaya finishes his way. Thank you, everyone.
Fine, Pratyush, thank you. Well, folks, let's understand. Am I audible? Just checking my audio.
Yeah,
Okay,
we are
just right.
perfectly audible.
Yeah, fine, fine. Thanks. So, just let me just arrange the things. Okay. I'll start my own in 3, 2, 1. So, considering this debate, how it went, and through starting speech to the end speech, I have a clear, distinct view. Why a certain group did win versus the other benches, right? Considering those aspects, I have 4 major points to highlight. One being, on what basis I judge and how this motion was relative enough, so that what are the grounds we want, were the laid factors, to judge this complete motion. 2 is the factors, so-called general comments and how it went. 3 is the actual judgment. Is 4 is the judgment, how the reasons why I allotted those ranks. Right? Now, considering those factors, what are the factors I did judge upon? Considering 1, it's a THW motion, so model should be provided. 2 is the fact that the actual running of these principles come into picture. So what I clearly mean is that which side was more close to the motion was really necessary aspects to understand how this debate went is also a necessary factor or can be weighed, weighing a factor, this aspect, right? 3 is the fact that how many, which side did clearly persuade me or gave me enough reasoning enough, or which was close enough to define your assertions that these were the reasons this assertion stands, and this is more close enough to this motion, that is the reason this point stands. That side was far more appreciated. And 4 is the fact that who did stick to their model, or who or which side was more evident enough, close enough to the model, aligning which ARE rules and other things, and streamlined their principles, adjusting the repercussions, I mean, from the both the sides, tackling and the other questions was appreciated. And these were some of the basic models or the factors which I did judge upon, or were the factors. Now, considering upon that, some general comments, right? Uh, as this motion clearly analyzes the fact that this motion clearly requires model. 1, that's there. 2, it's about the principle which you stick upon, or the factors such as team A goes with a model or the principle, like we want to stick with the morality of the whole population or the majority of the population, watch their faith or the beliefs in, versus the principle of why this independency of a judiciary is really important. We are sticking to it. We really adhere to it, and this check and balance system is really important, right? That was there, those 2 principles. And the third factor is, which was evident, the ground factor itself was that uh, there are 3 judicial power. I mean, there are 3 powers, and why judicial independency or judicial accountability versus the legislature accountability, where both the sides govern the closing, or most of the sides of the benches did try to portray. 2 is the fact that how this portraying of this principle of sticking to judicial versus legislature was something was also highlighted. considering those things, right? Now, considering all these notions, I gave first to OO, followed by CO, followed by CG, and followed by OG. So first is opening up, second is closing up, third is CG, and fourth is OG. Let me break down, so how this debate went, and basis of that, how these points did stand, and how these points were not able to, more substantiated enough so that they didn't stand in this whole course of debate. Uh, okay, let's go around. How the OG presented the case enough, right? Where the question of why CG over OG is the first fundamental aspect which needs to be judged, right? As a OG, you are expected to give me the model itself, right? Why, if this is the case, what simple majority we clearly mean by, and if this majority comes out, what are the process we are going to follow? If the voting process, or if this voting process, what are certain processes of members or the different members are involved in this voting process? And second factor is the why this legislative system is far more necessary than the judicial autocracy which is rising in today's scenario, which was assertion enough. It did try to give me a far more reasoning on the basis of, we will go for pro people, because that itself checks and balances the system itself, because that is where people are moving forward. This is where we want to move forward. Was the mere reason which was did provide by the OG, but these were the only things which were given from the OG side, that we will have a majority system, we can uphold any decision. It was a very big task, or a hard chunk to swallow, that any decision can be overturned, and it did rise to some of the major backlashes, which I will tell you later why CG did take some of those backlashes or the loopholes in that, right? Mhm. So there were some certain good points which I really appreciated from the DPM speech. Where it's like the question of illiteracy versus literacy came into a factor. The question where it did rise was DPM's case, where he pointed out how the illiteracy aspect is a question on why the majority of the people, the politicians are illiterate, even that why it's not necessary that these people should be in power to take those major decisions versus judicial people. The question which it did try to give Punit try to assert it and move forward was, right, you know when this comes into the picture, awareness of the people does come into picture, and that itself pushes more you know uh, uh, substantially intellectual people to go for and vote for the people, to stand for election, which does create a long term scenario where good amount of people can come forward at a better stage, and you can improve the democracy factor at the ground level itself, was presented by the DPM, which was certain of the points which can be explained of a far more substantial way, could have had a better edge over the closing government. Thus, I gave, those were the points, notions were presented by the OG. Now, what CG simply did over OG was, like, they did try to portray some model as motion suggests. And when this motion itself says that, THW, they did try to make up some model. It's like, we will have a far more voting reach where each and every MP is involved. And some MPs, they can take some opinion based model where those opinions can be presented at legislature, where their voice is heard, where even a simple notion presented by any constituency is far more enough. Or maybe consider the case was where MG did try to portray is the fact that you know consider a region of people were involved, where specific region was involved, and they can be far more logical enough to understand how this goes, right? Those were the two things which was presented, and the process itself, why this majority aspects comes into picture, where Dhanush case did try to say, this process is far more enough than judicial autocracy, and why only 5 people can take far more advantage over the cases presented by the legislature. They did try to take down that case, but still, that was far not was far sufficient enough to take down the closing opposition's case, right? No, it was far more enough to take down the cases of OGs because of the fundamental error itself. Two is the factor, the notion of the process itself they did try to portray, and three is the factor which they did try to stick to the notion or stick to the motion to the principle enough comparing to the OG. Considering those factors, CG stands over OG. Now, something beautiful happened here in CO's case, right? Which was really expected from the starting half itself, right? The question of the basic doctrine structure of democracy or the constitution itself was a question mark here, right? You know, the first moment itself when member of the closing government, I mean closing op, said that when the basic doctrine structure is preserved, why you really want legislature to take right now this powers, or why this judicial autocracy is coming into picture, was a question mark in the aspects presented by the whole take it as whole government bench did not answer this simple question, why this judicial autocracy is a really urgency to take down, and the pro centric or pro people centric, pro legislative centric is really required. Was that question itself defined the weighing model, where they try to give me the Keshav Nanda Bharati case, they try to give me majority people, when this comes into the factor, they can play with law amending anything. They can amend any or law and order for people, for benefiting for majority of the population, right? Take the simple case of Bilkis Banu case, where they did try to overturn the convicts involved in the case and they released them. But judicial power did try to give them uh, a chance so that the convicts were involved, so that they can be sent back to the jail, and how far more freedom is given where minorities stakes are hurt, right? If you remove any problem or any case was removed from any case is questioned from legislature regarding any judgment, you take a higher burden to define, where you try to define the questions, where one is the factor that why legislature itself is the really important role over judicial's decision. Two is the fact that what amount of knowledge or what amount of power you have to amend those situations. Regretting or avoiding the minority stakes was also a question on the entire government base, was highlighted in the member of CG's case, I mean CO's case, was also presented. And the question where the election commission, CGI, where independent bodies are involved, even those electing members of for any superior position to be filled for any CGI or election commission, it is really important that how transparent enough is that process, was where a power check and balance system comes into the picture, was presented by judiciary itself, was clearly presented here in the CG's case. Considering those cases and the other part of the violence where mass killing or the peace of nation is destroyed is present on the both the scenarios. Yet in this scenario is far more better as it's going on the present, far more evitable in this case scenario, considering the majority stakes involved in their scenario, where the suffering is far more residing on the government space. Considering on those aspects, three things, like two things were majorly evident. One, CG did try to stick to the motion throughout their principal analysis by the member of the opposition. Two is the fact that they did try to counter all the cases or the points presented by the entire opposition bench. Now, the question arises is, why opening up is far more, evident in this debate than the CO part. Three major things. One is that LO leader of opposition gave me a clear picture. See, if this comes into the power, these are the stakeholders which are affected. These stakeholders, when they are affected, the morality and the working of the working of the democracy, it's in a danger. Two, he did try to portray with example of slow growth, where Hello did try to give an example of UK constitution and the deadlock. And three is the factor the benefits of the minority itself, right? Being simply stating a simple example of 377 section, revoking the section 377, right? And four, which was presented by Samhita itself, right? Why you want to look at the short-term benefits versus long-term scenario. That was where the Keshavananda Bharati's case was really important. And Kerala government, did try to topple the fundamental rights itself, right? Did try to link, in fact, was the cases of where short-term thinking versus long-term benefits, right? That was where presented by Samhita, and the fourth factor being the transparency itself, right? What if the government officials or the government involved in these cases was really necessary, where judicial custody itself comes into the picture was necessary, right? Why this law itself presenting, why this XYZ law needs to be presented for majority itself, why the minority stakes involved, what were the process of involved to govern this law was a question mark presented by the, DLO's page was really evident in throughout this debate. Considering this, all cases were presented from the, opening opposition. Those were the reasons they did try to take all of the debates. They were diagonal cases, it was very less diagonal questioning or diagonal POIs. POIs would have been more appreciated in this debate. I did see there were only one or two POIs were taken. If POIs were taken, it would have been far more better case. So fine, folks. If you have any problem with the judgment, you need far more clarification, you can just text me or call me. I can give you personal feedback. I think more than feedback, I can give you far more suggestions how you can approach with this kind of debates. Considering those aspects, you can mark us. So I think this is the final verdict we have. Any more questions, guys? You can just text me.
I think it's already late. We'll take questions, everything we
It's
have
already
covered.
late. It's fine. You can just
Yeah.
text me. All right, fine. Folks, nice debating. I think some of them were new to debating arena. They did give their best, and you stick to the, at least for 5 minutes in this, open tournament itself. It was really nice. It was much appreciated. Your participation was really good. So thank you very much. Have a good. Chale Pratyush, it's over, right?
Yeah. Thank you everyone for the debate. I wish you all the very
Thank you.
best of luck for round two. For round two, we'll
Thank
be releasing the themes by 12 a.m. tonight. So please stay tuned till that time. And best of luck. If you have any doubts, anything, feel free to message us on, like, we are available on WhatsApp group. Just feel free to message or call us anytime. Thank you then. And also, please do fill out the feedback form on judges and the panelists. It will help us to allocate them from next round. And that being said, thank you everyone. Best of luck. See you for round two tomorrow offline. Thank you.